The member who caused us to get to where we are, Naisula, that was your statement that spiraled into this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the CS for his detailed report. I must say that having listened to him and having looked at the report, it looks like they self-critiqued more. And I thank you also, Mr. Speaker, for the kamukunji, because it enabled us to comb through these very important issues. Actually, one of my first question was the 14,000 students that have not reported, so that we can understand whether it is still related to this new funding model. And Mr. Speaker, even as he prepares to answer this question, we might need a detailed report later, because sometimes you might find that the students also moved from one institution to the other and all that. I think we can follow up later to know exactly why these 14,000 students did not report to school. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we will need to know, maybe he might not have the answer right now, how many students have appealed, just so that we know whether the system is placing the students correctly. Because if we have too many appeals, it means it's not placing them correctly in the correct band. So far, it would be important to know how many students have appealed, and it is good that now you have the recategorization later in case something happens to the students. Lastly, I want to ask whether the private universities are benefiting from this new higher education funding model, and the whole issue of capitation, Mr. CS. I sit in the PEAK Public Investment Committee on Education and governance and education. And one of the issues that arises from all our higher institutions, our higher learning institutions, is the issue of capitation. We budget here, we pass it in Parliament, the exchequer is not released to these institutions. From what you have reported here, it seems the government will carry the burden of paying most of the school fees for these children. Meaning the burden of releasing exchequer and capitation again has come back to you, who does not release exchequer to these higher education institutions. You have seen the lecturers are now, they want to strike. You have seen the infrastructure in our institutions. I want you to tell us as a house how you will ensure, as the cabinet secretary, that these monies for these students will be released to institutions on time, so that we don't cripple our institutions, and these students also do not fall out of school. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, although it was not my question, I just want to put it to the CS that I think on these matters of the fires, we are a reactionary country. And even as the CS, I am aware that in my own county and constituency, the whole last week and 2 weeks, there's been what you're saying. They're running around the education board trying to assess the schools. Why can't this be a continuous process, so that it is not when a tragedy like the one that happens, is when you're running around to do what those education officers should have been doing on a continuous process?
So I allowed her that latitude because she's the one who raised the issue. The rest of the members try and seek one clarification or ask one question. And the minister, we can take, apart from Naisula, let's take 4 more. Then you respond and